everyone. Thank you for clicking on this. This is Unfinished Film Thoughts. You are listening to me, Lawrence. That is my name. And I'm hosting the show that I just told you the name of. Can you tell I'm still struggling how to introduce these things by myself? Normally I have a co-host to like throw it off to, or they do a part and I do a part. That's not the case with this one, unfortunately. I've just got to do everything. And I'm very conscious that when I stop speaking, I'm like, what if I forget what I just said? And now I'm over-explaining the thought process that goes into these things. I enjoy doing these. I swear I actually do, even if it doesn't come across like that. Today, I am throwing it all the way back, not in the sense that I'm dancing with my bum out, but I am watching a film that came out before I was even born, the year of our Lord 1994. It's a Jim Cameron film. I don't know him like that. It's a James Cameron film that I'd never seen before. One of the few of his that I'd never seen. This is pre-Titanic. This is post Terminator and Terminator 2, I believe. I think Terminator 2 was 1992. Anyway, basically to set the stage, this was James Cameron's, I've made a big action film, but I'm not quite the legend that I'm going to go on to be. So yeah, this is True Lies. This is kind of the last film that he made before he was the name that he is today. And it's a very, very interesting film. I was so keen to check this one out for the longest time because it just has a reputation that it's like one of the great films that knows how to use the towering, enormous man that is Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, yeah, he's always, James Cameron's always known how to use Arnie, isn't he? Like, he's always known how to like make him this kind of hulking, unstoppable killing machine. And then in this film, he knows how to dial it back a little bit, get him to play this weird little suburban dad who's secretly this super spy. If you don't know this film, I'm going to start doing something in these episodes where I actually let people in on what the film actually is about, because I found that so often I just go into these things and I'm like, everyone's on the same page as me. They've just seen the film too. This is going to be like a little refresher for those of you that have seen the film, but maybe not for a hot minute. And also, if you don't really care about spoilers and you haven't seen the film, just feel free to stay. If you do care about spoilers, why did you even click on this? Anyway, it's summary time. Secretly an international super spy for the last line of defense, but thought by his family to be a dull salesman, Harry Tasker, played by Big Arnold himself, is tracking down nuclear missiles in the possession of some extremely stereotypically and rather racistly portrayed terrorists, I might add. Harry's mission is complicated when he realizes that his neglected wife, Helen, played wonderfully by the underused Jamie Lee Curtis in this, is contemplating an affair with the most pathetic character that Bill Paxton has ever played. When the bad guys kidnap Harry and Helen, the secret agent must save the world and patch up his marriage at the same time, all whilst reconciling with her needs, the needs of the world, and the series of lies that he's told her over the past 2 decades. Very interesting. Look, I'd be lying if I said I didn't agree with this film's mixed reputation, right? I had an amazing time. This is one of them like 5-star watching experiences, but the film is definitely not the 5-star quality, if that makes sense. This is ridiculously entertaining, right? There are set pieces in this that are huge and inventive and confidently over the top, right? And James Cameron, he's always had this knack for it. He knows exactly how to stage spectacle so that it's exciting and sometimes quite funny as well. That's an underrated aspect of this movie that I wasn't really anticipating. This is more of a comedy than an action film. And don't get me wrong, this film ends with like Arnold Schwarzenegger like piloting a fighter jet by himself, like in a polo, and just shooting out skyscraper buildings and stuff. And I would still refer to it more as a comedy than an action film. It's that funny. But I don't want to undercut any of the action in this as well, right? This was the first movie to ever cost $100 million, or over, I think. I think they actually spent a little bit over $100 million on this, and they spent that shit really fucking well. Like, I'm watching movies that come out like these days, and not to be like, well, they're not in my day or whatever. I wasn't even born when this came out, but you know what I mean? Not to be like, well, they don't make them like they used to or whatever. There are films that are coming out now that are over double the budget of this, that aren't utilizing the same practicality that this film is utilizing. And I'm not saying that everything has to be practical to be good, right? That's maybe only true in the case of The Thing and also Yoda. But CGI has its place, visual effects has its place, and if you use them appropriately and if you use them as tools in your tool belt, in your arsenal, in your director's kit, then you can use them really effectively, and you won't even notice the fact that these things aren't practical and they're not tangible and they're not there, because you won't notice. But this is a movie where like they're doing bridge sequences, right? They're doing helicopters and jets flying over bridges. They're blowing shit up. People are falling into water. There's horses almost jumping buildings, like Fast and Furious 7 style. It's a ridiculous fucking movie. It might have been Fast and Furious 6. Whenever they do the skyscraper driving through it, that fucking movie is so dumb. The point I'm getting at is that these things are so well made. And James Cameron, he was obviously given this budget and he was like, I'm going to use every single fucking penny of this on the screen, and you can really, really feel it. This has like that Spielberg-y action quality in the way that it's never just a fight. Like Spielberg always deliberately overcomplicates his fight sequences. Think about Indiana Jones running away from something and then the big boulder that comes and gets him. It's always unconventional in some sort of way, which kind of adds an interesting element to it. This movie is doing that like it's on crack. There's the first little shootout they have. There's snow speeders. He's shooting people off snow speeders, Modern Warfare 2 style. For the people that really like Modern Warfare 2, you get that reference. That one was for you. If you didn't get it, don't worry. I'm a nerd for that kind of thing. I just said it as well, but he's doing like motorcycle chases, but swap out the motorcycle for a horse. He's piloting a fighter jet, right? This is a bizarre movie where the action is never exactly how you would expect it. It's very, very strange. And it also, I think, walks a surprisingly solid line between satire and sincerity as well. It kind of pokes fun at action movies and the power fantasies that you can kind of fall into when you make a film like this, but it also still delivers them. It's kind of, in a way, a bit hot fuzzy in the way that Edgar Wright spent the entire movie essentially saying, aren't action movies a little bit dumb and unrealistic? And then the third act of Hot Fuzz happens and you're like, this is every action film trope in the book. Like you can't, and also it's good. Like you're not ever sat there going like, oh, Edgar Wright sold out for the ending of Hot Fuzz. Like there is so much happening in the ending of Hot Fuzz that is so derivative of common like 80s kind of like muscle porn action films but it's so well homaged and it's so well replicated and aped that you can't help but fall in love with it a little bit. That's what this movie does. Do I think the balance is 100% always successful? No, but I think for the most part the movie really does kind of find this rhythm, at least between the two, between this kind of sincerity and this satire, where you do still believe the characters are real people. You don't look at him and just go, oh, that's an enormous stupid action hero, man. Like there's enough actual human weight to these characters that they still feel real. I think something that does help with that as well is that there's kind of these cheesy one-liners that happen all the time, but then there's always typically a character that points out how cheesy the one-liner was or how much of a dickhead the person that said it is. There's this one funny scene with Bill Paxton. He's like saying all the cheesy lines, right? And they go like, this guy, fucking hell, what an idiot. What a fucking idiot this guy is. And they make fun of him, and then they slip right back into it by going like, obviously we're still gonna have to kill him.
It's the training. Shapes you into a lethal instrument. You react in a microsecond without thinking.
I'm starting to like this guy. Oh, we still got to kill him. I mean, that's a given, you know.
So you see, it kind of dips one toe into reality, but also still kind of has its cake and eats it as well in terms of delivering the cheesy sort of cliched action tropes. If that makes sense. I think something helping its kind of believability as well is the strong thematic hook that it has. There's an entire double life truth versus deception idea that this movie has. It adds a little bit more depth to the whole thing, right? Think other like kind of 90s fucking action classics, right? You've got like Die Hard, which yes, has some stuff under the hood and means a little bit more than just cop needs to stop the terrorists or whatever. But for the most part, it kind of is, isn't it? If we're being honest, like there's not a lot of extra character. Maybe in the other ones, I haven't seen any of the other Die Hards. I've just seen the first one. But what I'm saying is this movie, True Lies, it provides enough depth to the characters. Arnold Schwarzenegger is this kind of absentee husband, absent father that has kind of no relationship with either of his family members. He's kind of closest weirdly to Ted Arnold, the guy that plays his kind of guy in the chair, sleazy fucking dickhead colleague. And you believe that relationship. You believe that them two have worked together for like 20 years at this point. They seemingly know everything about one another.
You tell on me, I tell on you.
What are you talking about? I'm as clean as a preacher's sheets. I'm as clean as a baby.
What about the time you blew a 6-week operation because we're busy getting a blowjob, huh?
You knew about that?
Jamie Lee Curtis's character in this has thoughts and feelings and very much exists in her own subplot outside of all the action stuff, at least at the beginning, in a way that you're as interested in her storyline as you are in his. It's very much not a movie that goes, we need to give him a wife just so that he's got someone to save at the end of the day. It is really, really not using characters in that way. It's using characters to actually say things about marriage and make a comment on kind of neglected fatherhood. It's bringing thematic ideas to the table. It's not just window dressing for characters. I mean, and speaking of Jamie Lee Curtis, I genuinely think she steals the movie in this. Arnold Schwarzenegger's performance is brilliant, don't get me wrong, like it's really fucking funny. But Jamie Lee Curtis brings this vulnerability, this kind of comedy, this arc of genuine growth that happens, right? Her performance really, really grounds the film. And the film really needs that anchor. It really, really needs kind of someone to every now and again put its 2 feet firmly on the ground. Even her more kind of like, she has some moments in this where she has to do some like, you know, quote unquote sexy moments or whatever the fuck. I don't know why I did a deep voice for that. That sounded stupid. But like, look, she has moments. A lot of people have claimed this movie as their like sexual awakening. Like a lot of people have said that like Jamie Lee Curtis doing her little striptease dance is a very formative moment in their youth. I didn't see it when I was young. I can't speak to that. Jamie Lee Curtis looks good, but I quite like that the moment in which people are referring to there is still really, really grounded in vulnerability rather than a woman reduced to an object. I think there's an argument to be made that this film is definitely a little dated in terms of its treatment of women, but this scene I do think is putting her in the lens of a sympathetic character as opposed to someone that's just kind of there to do a man's bidding. You feel immense sympathy for this character who has thoughts and feelings and yearning for a life that she didn't quite get to experience. She doesn't know who her husband is. She thinks her husband's a boring little IT nerd, and she would much rather he was this action spy. Case in point, the movie ends with her joining up with him and they work together. And their marriage is 10 times healthier for it because, you know, there's no longer these true lies. They're actually living a more truthful experience. They're being honest with one another, and therefore their bond flourishes because of it. But yeah, Jamie Lee Curtis, incredible in this film. So good. So vulnerable, so nice, so empathetic, and also funny. Like, she's got a bunch of like good moments, not like laugh out loud moments. The comedy with her is a lot more subtle, but her delivery and the way she's able to kind of play straight man, if not kind of bewildered sidekick a little bit sometimes to Arnold Schwarzenegger and also Bill Paxton. She's the Jim to the Dwight and the Michael. You know, you need her character. Otherwise, it's just too cartoonish and too much. I will say as well, in terms of what this film does right, there are some really, really memorable set pieces. But James Cameron's always been good at memorable set pieces, right? Like, he's still doing stuff like this now. Unfortunately, making big set pieces this memorable has sort of died off a little bit. You don't really get these massive ideas on screen anymore. Of course you do every now and again. I think the franchise that has really held it up, and I think actually has a lot to say in and, you know, has to give True Lies its flowers after watching it, is Mission Impossible. I think Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie especially, Brad Bird definitely, adding these bizarre set pieces and sequences into their big films where you go, which one's Fallout? Oh, it's the one with the skydive. Oh, which Kingsman film is it that kind of copies that James Bond film where they're just kind of sliding down the thing? Is it Moonraker, maybe? I don't know what the fuck I'm saying there. I'm not familiar enough with James Bond to make that comparison. What I'm saying is, unfortunately, it's sort of died out a little bit that action set pieces should always kind of revolve around this one big idea and this big concept. Think, funnily enough, James Cameron, the Titanic sinking, right? The moment, the almost horror-esque sequence with Rose running around with the axe as the water kind of bubbles up over her face. That shit's terrifying. Think about, again, in Way of Water, yes, he kind of copied it a little bit, but in Way of Water, Jake and Quaritch having the knife fight as the weird little boat platform situation thing that they're on drowns around them. And again, everyone starts drowning. Maybe I just like action where people are drowning. Maybe I like water-based action, I guess. But James Cameron is doing this kind of stuff. If I were to speak about some things in the film that maybe I liked less, there are some jokes and portrayals in this that I think are outright like racist and sexist, and sometimes they're genuinely uncomfortable, and sometimes they're so clearly in excess that they're obviously parody, but sometimes you can't tell. You know, sometimes you think like, maybe was that just something that flew by in the script? And you're like, that's acceptable to say. Like, the stuff that feels obvious is the sexist stuff. Right, Bill Paxton plays this fucking pathetic little nerd in this, right? And he has some, I'll play a clip again, but he has some horrendous lines in this, right? There's one monologue where he just goes off. By the time he's finished speaking, your jaw has hit the floor because you just genuinely can't believe some of the shit that came out of his fucking mouth.
Oh, gosh, she's got the most incredible body and a pair of titties make you want to stand up and beg for buttermilk. Ass like a 10-year-old boy.
That stuff is the stuff that obviously feels more parody because it's just so outlandish that no one in their right mind has ever said it, apart from insane people like fucking Andrew Tate and those grifter cunts that are selling like memberships to their university where they're like 100% success rate at pulling women. Like fucking absolute degenerate losers. But then there's the stuff that maybe hasn't aged so well. They're flicking through a kind of a Rolodex of potential terrorists, and there is, not a white man among them, let's just say. Very, very pointed. Very, very directed at a specific religion, which, is definitely a little, it feels very 90s, let's just say. But yeah, there's some stuff in there, definitely very dated, not very nice. A little bit, tainting a little bit, I think. It does ruin... You can't speak about this movie without, unfortunately, saying some stuff, though, in it. Like some probo stuff in it. Like, not to keep tying it back to Steven Spielberg, I promise, but like Temple of Doom. You watch that movie and you're like, what an amazing action film. Shame about all the racist stuff, though, Strange. Depictions of culture, maybe not this kind of era's speciality. I also said earlier there is some kind of uneven satire in this. The film really, really wants to critique power fantasies, but sometimes it's a little too in love with them to fully commit to the idea, if that makes sense. It definitely wants to have its cake and eat it too. And that's fine. It's you don't have to 100% dial into taking a stand about a specific thing. That's what I said about Hot Fuzz, in the way that it's very critical and kind of brushing off as the idiocies of big action films, but then fully indulges in it by the end. Like, that's absolutely fine, but I did think there were some points in this movie where I was like, all right, it's the pot calling the kettle black a little bit. Like, you can't really keep making fun of something and then so blatantly ripping it off at the same time. It feels a little, not disingenuous, but a little bit like, did you not have anything you wanted to add to that? Like, if it's a satire, maybe add some biting commentary to it a little bit, maybe make it feel a little bit more like you're above the joke or something like that. Like, satire isn't satire if it hasn't really got a point to it. If you're just doing the same thing, then you're just adding to the thing you're satirizing. Another thing I'd say, Jamie Lee Curtis is severely underused in this, not in the sense that she's not on screen enough, but she should be the emotional core of this movie. And unfortunately, I don't think she's given enough agency or narrative control. A lot of the film just kind of happens to her. And she also kind of stumbles through some of the back end like a little bit of a helpless buffoon, in the way that she's kind of behind on... Like, I get it, right? He's the super spy and she's the fucking housewife or whatever. Like, you're not going to suddenly start picking up a gun and nailing people. But she does have an interesting little fight sequence that is quite fun. But there's a lot of the film that sometimes just resigns her to, like, play second fiddle to Arnold Schwarzenegger's action hero, like run behind him, duck your head down in cover, that kind of thing.
Harry! Stop the gun!
Honey, next time, duck.
I married Rambo.
I think the film really should have been about her perspective, to be honest. Like, imagine it if we were introduced to this standard, normal, boring family and we find this emerging secret life and then we get to adapt into it, and Jamie Lee Curtis is kind of brought on board this kind of unknowing existence, and she gets to adapt into it, and her progression to becoming a spy in her own right is kind of taking place alongside the film's narrative, rather than kind of reserved for this 1 year later section at the end of the film. I'll tell you what it would be like. It'd be a little bit like The Incredibles, where the man is playing into this kind of, rose-tinted glasses, one eye in the past 24/7, looking back at the golden age, overly macho bullshit, wants to be the man of the house, wants to be the hero, and the woman is holding down the fort a little bit and saying, that's not our lives anymore. We have to grow up. And then eventually she kind of comes around to this idea of like, we have to grow up, but it's also not fair to entirely dismiss what we once were, because that's not being honest to ourselves. I'm not just saying do The Incredibles, but I'm saying the reason The Incredibles works so well, aside from the amazing characters and the amazing animation and everything else, is the fact that it kind of primarily centers on Helen, despite everything about the film trying to convince you that Mr. Incredible Bob is the main character. He's really not. It's more about Helen and her unraveling of the secret double life that Bob's been living and how she comes to terms with that. Her arc is the most pivotal arc in the entire movie, I think. And I think if Jamie Lee Curtis had the Mrs. Incredible treatment, as ridiculous as that is to say, the film might have been a bit more narratively evenly balanced, a bit more narratively rich. I think it could have been interesting. At the very least, I would love to see someone rework a script where they just change certain sequences around and just saw if it made a difference. Because again, something I also think this film suffers from a little bit is like, my God, it's long. It's 2.5 hours long, and you could easily get rid of, I would say 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, to be honest, without hurting the experience. If anything, I think it would actually improve it. The middle of this film drags, right? There is an obvious inevitability to the fact that Jamie Lee Curtis is going to find out what her husband does for work. But they spend this good 30-minute stretch getting, maybe 20 minutes, but they spend a good 20 minutes getting there. And to be honest, it kind of feels a little bit like the same idea just over and over again, and Jamie Lee Curtis's character is kind of beaten over the head with it over and over again, and because she has so little narrative agency, it begins to feel a little bit like the film is kind of laughing at her in her predicament for being so clueless, despite the fact it hasn't really expanded on her enough for her to know. But yeah, there's this kind of whole sequence in the middle where Arnold Schwarzenegger thinks that his wife Helen is cheating on him, and she isn't. I can see why he would think it, because she is meeting up with Bill Paxton, who is this car salesman that's masquerading as a super spy because he wants to give women the dangerous bad boy that they're so often searching for because their husbands are all boring IT nerds like Arnold Schwarzenegger's posing to be. Very, very convoluted, this stuff. Bill Paxton's amazing and he's very, very funny, but it's very, very convoluted. It's a plot point that, yes, I'm glad it's in there, but my God, trim this down, James Cameron. What are we doing? Have you ever made a short movie, James Cameron? They can be good. They can be good. Sometimes you don't need to expand on every single idea you have to the nth degree, I think. But yeah, this whole sequence kind of just derives into Arnold Schwarzenegger using the entire resources of this kind of military Omega level anti-terrorist force that he seemingly is the head of, with seemingly no overreach whatsoever, apart from Charlton Heston comes around every once in a while with an eye patch on, and he's like, "You boys are pretty good at your job," and then disappears from the entire movie. It is interesting that the only way that Harry, Arnold's character, can kind of emotionally, honestly converse with his wife is through this kind of one-way glass situation where she's in a holding cell and he's talking to her with like a voice modulator on, where he kind of sounds a bit like this.
"Did you cheat on me? Please don't tell me you cheated on me. Oh my God, I won't be able to handle it if you actually had sex with Bill Paxton. He's such a fucking nerd."
Like, it's an interesting idea, absolutely, that he's so used to lying to his wife that the only way he can really be honest with her is through this kind of showy, backed by the military masquerade, fucking deceitful way. But at the same time, at what point do we just let the character in and let them join the party? Because they're so obviously going to join the party. Why are we holding them? Why are we doing this? Why does it go so long? And why does he actually try and give her a mission where he wants to reveal his secret identity to her in this horrendous way where he's forced her to dress up as a fucking prostitute and do a dance for a man that she doesn't know and thinks is an arms dealer, but it's actually him using a tape recorder expertly and rewinding it so that he can say certain phrases in this French accent that he got his co-worker to fucking record for him. It's a ludicrously overexpanded upon element of the film, and to be honest, it makes the film a little worse. The first act, I was like, this is so my jam. I love this. Second act, I was like, okay, interesting. By the time the third act rolls around, I was going, this must be almost done. This must be almost done. And spoiler alert, there was half an hour left in the movie, and then it has the multiple ending syndrome. I know it sounds like I'm bashing this movie. I really enjoyed this movie, but it has so many weird problems. There needed to be someone else editing this, I think. I don't know who edited this. I get the feeling James Cameron was extremely hands-on, because I don't think there's much left on that cutting room floor, because what else could there be that wasn't in this, you know? Last thing I'll say a little bit before I want to talk about some honorable mentions. The antagonists, unfortunately, like I said, kind of fall into that racist category earlier. They kind of exist as caricatures, which really limits the film's like tension and nuance a little bit. You kind of can't really get invested in defeating the bad guys when the bad guys are so one note and stereotypical and kind of just borderline offensive as well. But yes, honorable mentions. There's a seagull, which actually brings about the demise of the terrorists, where they drive their truck halfway off a bridge and it kind of lingers there for a moment and precariously balances, and it manages to balance, and then they all celebrate, and then a seagull just lands on the hood of the car and it tips them all into fucking an explosion. Really funny stuff. Great funny stuff. Practicality in this, you can feel the 100 million more spent on it. Like it really, really does feel tangible. Lighting in this is absolutely stunning. That scene I just made fun of, where Arnold Schwarzenegger's fiddling around with a tape recorder, he is lit so beautifully and so believably enshrouded in shadow and darkness. And speaking of Arnold, his performance in this is hilarious. Fucking so phenomenally funny. So many hard stares in this that are just absurd. I think he's really aided by the fact that he looks ridiculous. Like, it is so funny that like this guy looks like a secret agent super spy because of the size he is, but then they dress him in these ridiculous little shirts and ties and suits that kind of make him look like he's this big nerd despite the fact that he's so obviously fucking enormous. They use him in the exact same way Terminator uses him, where it's so funny how much he sticks out and how much the world kind of refuses to realize that he sticks out in it. It's very fun. There's a truth serum scene that is very fun. Arnold Schwarzenegger has an amazing line about how, like she's like, "Have you killed people?" And he goes, "Yeah, but they were all bad." And the delivery on it is hilarious.
Have you ever killed anyone?
Yeah, but they were all bad.
Oh, and the last honorable mention I want to talk about is the bathroom fight. Mission Impossible Fallout, sign the check, man. You owe them a lot of money. I was really, really convinced that Mission Impossible Fallout's bathroom fight sequence was one of my favorite action sequences ever put to film. This bathroom sequence wipes the floor with it, and it so obviously is the inspiration for it. I'm not saying that Mission Impossible didn't do its own thing, and the added beat that there's this kind of old guy just trying to fucking have a shit while, guns are going off. Yeah, because what would you do if you're having a shit? Do you know what I mean? It's really, really funny. I thoroughly enjoyed the bathroom fight sequence. Overall, I would say that True Lies is this kind of messy, excessive, sometimes a little uncomfortable to watch film, but it's also really, really fun. I don't want to get it misconstrued how fun I thought this was. It's one of those great instances where it's a high-budget action spectacle that actually is trying to do something with the amount of money and the amount of talent behind it. It's kind of got a little bit more on its mind than some people give it credit for. And I think that maybe it doesn't stick the landing so much, maybe not just in the ending sense, but maybe it doesn't always do the best with the ideas that it has, but the ideas are nevertheless extremely interesting, and ones that I think, unfortunately, a tighter film, a leaner film maybe could have expanded on a little bit cleaner. It can be a product of its time for two reasons. It's the worst of the 90s meets the best of the 90s, essentially. I had a good time with it, and I would implore anyone that is interested and wants to see an Arnold Schwarzenegger performance that isn't just this kind of overly indulgent geezer pleaser fucking macho man with a gun. It's not Predator. It's not like a Rambo. It's actually a bit of fun and silly and wacky and insane and bonkers and hilarious. Go and watch this if you haven't watched it. I hadn't seen it. It'd been on my list for a long time, and I'm really glad I've watched it.
I'm not a terrorist. I'm actually a complete coward. If I ever saw a gun, I'd... Oh, God, oh, please don't kill me. I got a little dick. It's pathetic.
Anyway, to close us out, what I'll say is thank you so much for listening to this. If you've enjoyed it, give us a little 5-star review. This is a new show, so any help that you can kind of give me in terms of pushing it out there by giving it a good review, that's always really, really nice. In that vein, you can give me a little follow as well. I'm on Instagram at Unfinished Film Thoughts, and also Lawrence_Heisey. I have a Letterboxd account. It's all linked down there in the show notes. You can go and check that out. Also, thank you for producing this Another Happy Studios. You are welcome. I am half of Another Happy Studios. I co-own that with my good pal Nathan. We also host this Doctor Who Rewatch podcast if you want to go and check that out. Also on the network is Gavin and Stacey Rewatch podcast, The Fishing Trip Files, which is wrapped up now, so you can go and watch that. It's perfect companion listening to the show. Fishing Trip Files, Talking Pictures podcast. Brian and David are always chatting about movies, and also Saturday Morning Cartoon Club, which is their new podcast. I actually haven't heard a single episode from it yet, but I think by the time this goes out, they should have already put one up on the feed. So go and listen to all that stuff. Also, Another Happy Pod just finished out closing off the sequel trilogy, so that should also be a little bit of fun for you as well. Or maybe we haven't done it yet. We haven't actually recorded that one yet. Either way, we spoke about some Star Wars stuff recently, and there's a whole back catalogue of over 200 episodes talking about other movies if you want to hear me ramble about movies. So that's always fun. Thank you so much for listening. Have a lovely, lovely time. Maybe it's the weekend. Maybe it's the week. Go and have an appropriate time for whatever day of the week it is that you're listening to this. Thank you and good night.